From my perspective as a classically trained transactional attorney and counsel who regularly works in traditional modes of ADR, mediation and collaborative law primarily, I found the approach that Blair and Doug bring to conflict management and conflict resolution in a family business context really refreshing, insightful, and pushed me to question some of my assumptions in a healthy way. And one of the things that Blair and Doug have taught me is that when you're dealing with family business conflict, you never can forget that you're dealing with relationships that will never at one level be broken. I may be in business with you for the last 40 years as my brother or my sister-in-law or my cousin, and we may have a falling out. We may have a civil war and the business may break up. But you're always my brother. You're always my sister-in-law. You're always my cousin. And so one of the first things you need to recognize is you can't just apply a traditional form of ADR in a family business context without fundamentally examining what it means to be in a family business, what that means to be an owner or a family member, a stakeholder. And I think that because Doug and Blair started from that context, understanding the environment in which that conflict existed, they were able to take a step back and examine certain assumptions that are common to attorneys and other professionals who find ways of resolving legal disputes outside the court system. So that's a basic and very obvious concept, but it's one that they have carried forward in a very consistent and deep way. They've really thought that through. They haven't said we're helping people resolve conflicts in any context. They're saying this is the context and there's those unique qualities, those relationships that are blood relationships or the like that won't change. The concept that in most of these conflicts there's a huge history behind it. I mean, one of the things that was very evident in a recent continuity engagement I've been involved with is that some of the conflict it relates to matters from a generation ago, from 20 years ago, what someone's father or uncle did in the business and how that's perceived differently by different branches in the family. That's usually not going to be the case in most conflicts of a legal nature that you're trying to resolve in an ADR. Another just eye-opener for me in terms of the approach that Doug and Blair have is that there's a recognition that the traditional mode of resolving a dispute, which is to basically divide the orange in half that the two parties want, it doesn't work in a family business context sometimes because people have an identity. They identify with a certain aspect of the business. Their truth is how they remember the family narrative of their father or the like who saved the business. And so you can't negotiate over that. I can't split the difference with you on that truth or how you identify with the business. And so I think that one of the really, brilliant aspects of where Doug and Blair are coming from is, again, they recognize that reality in a family context that you don't deal with in the same way if you and I are just two folks who met each other in business school and we decide to set up a firm and then we have a falling out and have to break it up. It's a different context. And I just think that too often dispute resolution professionals in my world, they have their technique, and their technique works if you're trying to resolve the Palestinian-Israeli conflict or whether you're trying to resolve the fight between your son and the next door neighbor over who owns the lemonade stand. And I think the beauty is that not only are Blair and Doug very forward thinkers when they think about how to identify and navigate and resolve conflict, but they do it in a way that's very particular to a family business context. It's not that their techniques won't work in other contexts, but they're especially suited, custom fitted for that type of conflict.